Thank you, Jed, and thank you, Jonathan. We are so honored. Where do you want to sit? Here, we'll do it in the middle. We are so honored to be here, and again, Jed and Jonathan, thank you so much for putting together this incredible conference and just what you're doing for people and the planet, because that's also what we're here to talk about. So, hi, good morning. I am Ashlan Cousteau. I am a journalist, I'm an author, I'm a television host, documentary filmmaker, I'm a mom, I have a new baby at home, so if I grab my boobs, it's because my milk is letting down, so I apologize in advance for that. She's only 2.5 months. In my previous career, I was a fill-in anchor and host for E! And I really, after meeting this lovely gentleman next to me, I realized that my mission in life is to use the tools that I learned in communication and apply it to really getting people to connect the dots about our environment and sustainability and human sustainability.
So my name is Philippe Cousteau. Yes, check. All right. My name is Philippe Cousteau, and I am the fortunate partner in many ways in life and in this business with this extraordinary woman. I also want to actually acknowledge our other co-founders here, Jill and Sarah in the audience are with us, and our team from Prismatics here. Thank you so much. It's been a 3-year journey to get here, but it's one very much inspired by my legacy. My grandfather, Jacques Cousteau, was a filmmaker, an explorer, and 72 years ago now, he was the first person to invent or co-invent scuba diving and explore the ocean freely, and he made underwater cameras and really launched humanity's exploration of the ocean. But at his core, my grandfather was a problem solver, and that's really how I see myself and really what we're here to talk about today. But to announce today, I should say, before we get to that, we do want to provide a little bit of context to this discussion and the importance of it. I spent 15 years working in the nonprofit space, running a leading youth environmental education organization, Earth Echo International. We've hosted TVs, documentaries together. I've done a lot of different, books, all sorts of different things. But we're really, really excited about what we're here to talk about today and share with you for the first time ever this morning as we launch this. So,
and what we want to do is we want to make sure, we want to provide some context. We want to get everybody on the same page. And really what we want to talk to you first about is our ocean. Because of course we're the Cousteaus, so we have to talk about the ocean because that's what we do.
It's required.
That's the job description. So our ocean, why is it even important? Why should our ocean matter to us? Well, number one, it provides over 50%, or I should say most of the oxygen on our planet is thanks to these tiny little creatures that live in the ocean, phytoplankton. The ocean covers 70% of our planet. So we really shouldn't have called ourselves Earth, we should have called ourselves ocean. And 80% of all life, 80% of all life on this planet lives in the ocean. And yet, we tend not to think about the ocean every day, even in New York when it's just right there. For the protein, the protein from the ocean feeds billions of people around the world. It provides livelihood and jobs for countless people. The ocean controls our climate and our weather, and all precipitation that is falling today originated in the ocean. It waters our crops, it gives us water, and really the ocean just doesn't get the credit that it deserves. It also is a giant carbon sink, for better and for worse. It's absorbed about 1/3 of the carbon that we've put, the excess carbon that we've put into our atmosphere. So, that's the good news. That's the great news about all the amazing things that our ocean does for us. The bad news is...
Yeah, unfortunately, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen headlines, around the world, we won't belabor it, but, the big challenges facing the ocean from pollution, like plastic pollution, right? There's over 100 million tons in the ocean today with another 8 to 10 million that enter the ocean every year, and that's just projected to increase. Plastic use is projected to increase. Despite all the concern that everybody has about this issue, all the big brands, Coca-Cola, they anticipate, tons and tons and tons more plastic every year.
And visually speaking, it's like we're putting one New York City dump truck full of plastic into the ocean every single minute.
Yeah.
That's how much.
It's about the equivalent of the 8 to 10 million tons a year. And when we think about all the other pollution, runoff, et cetera, we're creating dead zones around the ocean to our detriment. We, of course, have issues around overfishing. 90% of our fish stocks are overfished or fished to capacity. 90%, think about that. I mean, that's almost a number that you can't quite get your head around when you think about the volume of life that has been sapped from the ocean. And with a 2.5-month-old and a 2.5-year-old at home, and all of you who are parents, I'm sure, are asking the same thing. What kind of a world are we passing on to our children? And then, of course, the big one coming out of COP26, climate, right? The ocean regulates our climate, as Ashlan said, and climate change is an ocean problem. And yet, ocean is like 14 on the SDGs, so I still don't understand that. But Sustainable Development Goals. But as Ashlan said, it still doesn't get enough attention and credit for the functions that it plays, because not only is it a victim of our excess, but it can also be a powerful ally in fighting that excess and in building and restoring the world. And that's important. I think a theme that you're going to hear a lot, we talk about, is we need to get away from this idea of sustainability. Because all the things we just listed, who wants to sustain an ocean with 90% of its life gone, half the world's coral reefs collapsed, runaway climate change? We don't want to sustain the way the world is right now. We want to restore the world. We want to build a thriving and abundant future, and we can. And that's the good news.
Yeah, we didn't want to be too Debbie Downer, wah-wah, up here, but these are serious issues, and the great news is there's hope. And the ocean, like nature, but the ocean specifically, has an incredible power to renew. We just have to give it a chance. We've seen this with our own eyes from everywhere from Bikini Atoll, which is where we did all of the nuclear testing during the Cold War, to Cabo Pulmo, which was an overfished fishing village down in Mexico that's now been turned into a marine reserve, and the fish are just fabulous. Schools of fish as big as this room, where there used to be nothing. So the good news is the nature can come back, the ocean can come back, and as we've said, it's absorbed a lot of our carbon. So if we have a healthier ocean, it truly is our best tool in fighting climate change, because it will continue to do this for us. So let's give it the best opportunity that we can. So another amazing thing is mangroves. I don't know if you guys know much about mangroves, but they're coastal plants, and they, especially as you were saying in COP, everybody's talking about rainforest and terrestrial trees. I love trees. I will hug a tree when I see it, but trees take years and years and years and years to grow. But when you think of mangroves, actually 1 acre of mangrove absorbs so much more carbon than a terrestrial tree or even an acre of rainforest. Seagrasses are incredibly resilient and store carbon in the ocean deep down in their roots. And then there's also things like, which you'll be hearing us talk about, SeaWeed. It's an incredible, incredible little algae. We think of it as a plant, but it's technically an algae, a macroalgae. And it is able to absorb carbon. It can actually create healthy ecosystems and nurseries for small animals. That's where they need a little place to grow up in the world. And it can also clean the water. It can re-oxygenate the area, because a lot of the oxygen levels in our ocean are also declining. So again, there's these amazing things that we can do. And that's why we're so excited.
Yeah, and so, but what we realized, having worked in nonprofits and in government, over the last few decades, and really for me 3 generations, we realized that simply nonprofit and government approaches to solving these problems are insufficient. And that we need private sector and market-based solutions to these types of problems as well, to build the kind of massive momentum that we need. And so, recognizing that, there's nascent industries around what we call the blue economy, the emerging or restorative blue economy. You may have heard that term before, and the blue economy, at least the emerging blue economy, stands for anything really that's positive, renewable energy, and in many cases, aquaculture. And in this case, for relevant to this conversation, seaweed and kelp aquaculture, which is extraordinary, as Ashlan just pointed out, for the ocean. And so instead of just talking the talk, we do a lot of talking. We decided 3 years ago to walk the walk and establish what we think will be the new standard for that in this industry.
Yeah, so we are launching a new business. It is called SeaWeed Naturals. And we are literally combining, thank you, we're combining the power of these proven marine ingredients like seaweed and algae, and we're combining them with the healing and restorative benefits of THC and CBD. So we're actually in the wellness space. So we're really elevating the wellness space with a completely new category. And what's so exciting about this is we're looking at an impactful business in almost an ecosystem. The whole thing from seed to skin. Really, every single decision that we're making in this business is how can we make a better impact on our planet? Not just less of an impact, but how can we make it better? And how can we restore the ocean? And how can we work with partners that are restoring? Because again, sustaining this is not what we want. So if you all take away anything today, it's that sustainability, we need to move beyond it, and we need to start talking about regeneration and restoring. And that's what we're so excited to be able to, just to start something and really use THC and elevate it and get people excited and also learn more about our ocean. More people need to care about our ocean, and we think the cannabis space is another great place to start to just bring more people into ocean awareness.
So you're all the first ones to be hearing about it. Today's the official launch. I said our website just went live this morning. We're very excited about SeaWeed Naturals and what we're doing there. And thanks, so grateful to LMCC to let us announce this and make this happen and jump into now a discussion.
Yes, so now stay tuned for part 2 of this amazing conversation. I'd like to welcome Emily Dougherty, our moderator. Thank you for coming up, Emily.
Yay!
And
we can slide down.
Oren Ezra, CEO and founder of Formology Lab. Welcome, Oren. And next up is Ben
Oren.
Dobson, founder and executive director of Hudson Carbon. Thank you, gentlemen.
How are you? How are you, sweetie?
Nice to meet you. Hello, I want to welcome you guys here today. I'm a little nervous being up here because I'm such huge fans of so many people in the room. And I know that, sustainability is something that everybody in this room is worried about. And so I won't be as jokey today as I am on many of my panels, and I apologize in advance for that. But I want to welcome everybody here today. Ben, hello, good morning. How was your drive into the city?
It was a little delayed, but I'm here just in time.
It's perfect timing.
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me today. It's an honor to meet you both, and I'm looking forward to talk about how we need to connect all our ecosystems and our use on land and how that plays into the ocean.
So Ben's part of Hudson Hemp. Can you tell us a little bit more about Hudson Hemp and what you're doing?
Sure. So at Hudson Hemp, we're located on a regenerative organic research farm, which 7 years ago we converted from a GMO corn and soy growing farm and founded a company called Hudson Carbon to research the full carbon cycle and changes to depth in our soil carbons, our terrestrial carbon, our auxiliary greenhouse gases such as methane, nitrous oxide, and also to assess new crops and approaches to supply chains. And we began Hudson Hemp in 2017 with our first hemp crop and have been pioneering ways to grow hemp in ways that sequester more carbon than a release in the soil alone, and then also through the supply chain of the products we use to package and make the hemp remain regenerative and organic. That's our primary focus.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Oren, the first time I met you, you mentioned carbon. I think was the second word out of your mouth. But you're also, those in the audience, you might remember him from last year. Could you tell us a little bit about where Formology has been and where you're going?
Yes, so we started in 2017. Started with like a very small lab. And I remember like a few months after we started, I came to the plant one day and we were making our biggest production. 50,000 units that day, which is not so big for like plants. And I'm looking at like these 50,000 plastic containers. And I'm like, wait, these 50,000 plastic containers, the next time they're going to like disappear maybe in 2,000 years. We're hoping that in 2,000 years. And living next to the ocean and spending a lot of time in the ocean, I'm like, okay, what am I leaving to my son, you know? What is my son going to, like, in 50 years, when he's going to take his kids to the beach, is the beach going to be the same? Living in Southern California, a lot of my friends are like surfers, and I heard from them growing up in Southern California how different was the oceans back then. And I'm like, no, we really see it. Like maybe we don't see cause and effect immediately, but this is something that, yes, we see it like after 20 years, after 30 years. Every day we get all our Amazon packages and we don't know what to do with them, and our recycle bin is crazy full. And how much out of it is like really being recycled. And then we put it like, for us, it's very important to like try and help our customers to educate their customers and to help them like find solutions for like using less plastic, help them like teach people how to recycle. I don't think like probably 90% of consumers don't know that when you finish to use the tube that you're going to throw in the recycle bin, you have to cut it, wash it, take the cap out, separate it, and then recycle it. So I think that like by doing these little things that are like not so complicated, we can like affect a lot on our carbon dioxide levels that we produce to the world.
Thank you. You brought up the notion of restorative versus sustainability, and sustainability itself seems like a big ask. So if you would each talk about how do we get to restorative if we're just thinking about sustainability?
I think I mean, everything, I mentioned this before, but I want to drill it again. You know, every decision we make, everything we do, every moment of every single day makes a difference on the planet, a positive or a negative. And nobody's perfect. If we're perfect, we'd all be naked, running around in the rain, eating leaves. So no one's perfect. So also know that, you know, you can't be a perfect person, but every single decision that you make, especially as a consumer, is a decision that is so powerful that can make such a big difference. So really I always tell people, just every time you need to make a decision, try to make a better one. Or if you run a company, every small decision that you make, see if you can make a better one. And it's those little decisions and those big decisions that add up to a better planet. And again, you know, sustaining what we have now is not the goal. We want to restore it back to what it used to be.
I think intentionality is really important too. We talk about that a lot. I mean, when we actually started this journey, we started from the perspective of, hey, how can we build the blue economy? How can we help, you know, accelerate? Because I mean, we were so excited to have Ben on the panel here. We're such big devotees. I love to cook, and I have raised beds at home, and I've done shows about carbon and the soil. I mean, like, that is so important. And how can we help elevate the ocean to be recognized as also a key ally in this idea of restorative, regenerative systems? And so that's really where we started with the intentionality, was like, how do we help establish and build that market and that industry? And we backed into, okay, well, we have a brand, and how do we leverage that, and lifestyle brand, and okay. So we reverse engineered from the outcome that we wanted, which was to help build this industry and help restore the ocean and help all of us lead thriving, healthy lives. And then we figured out, how do we deliver on that goal? I think that's also important, to start with intentionality first, as opposed to being like, oh, I want to go and create a brand. Now I'm going to try and figure out how to do good with it. That's backwards, in my opinion.
I completely agree that we have to think about a brand as simply a tool to accomplish an objective. And we have designed our entire economy to avoid ecological outcomes. Capitalism runs on labor and capital. It avoids land. We put that out of the equation a long time ago to allow for the creation of money, which doesn't follow the laws of thermodynamics. They're the fundamental rules that dictate matter and energy. So we can still use capitalism in markets, but we need to reorient the goals to incorporate land and its function back in. And you connect the ocean and the land simply by fundamentally thinking about the carbon cycle. And you can apply positive value when carbon is coming in and being a positive. We have too much in the ocean. We need to sequester more into forests, into soils, and into ocean plants. That would be a value. You get paid for that. Who should be paying for that? Those who are digging coal every day, pumping oil, and us every time we fill our car for gasoline. And therefore, you could actually create an economic solution, a market-based solution that isn't the Band-Aid of where we take the excess from a bad system to fund nonprofits and governments. You're never going to solve a problem. That's a fallacy of composition. So I think that we fundamentally need to rethink how we structure our economy, and that the most valuable thing is a livable planet. And then from there, you could be rich or poor, but we all have a livable planet. And that therefore, a product, if you think of the first step, if it starts with SeaWeed that's sequestering carbon, you're starting on the right foot. If it starts in a synthetic laboratory, you're already way behind the punch. So I really think about what are you starting with? What's your brand accomplishing as an objective? And then we work on scientific methodologies to quantify the impact of various practices on carbon sequestration, methane, nitrous oxide, and water. And these systems are whole. It only takes us on 30% of the Earth's surface. We only need 30% of the Earth's surface to be destroying 70% of the water. So we look at it as a ridgetop to ocean floor approach, and the carbon cycle in a macro and micro level works across there, and that's the first of many cycles we need to start watching. I hope that's not too much, but that's sort of our approach.
It's terrific.
Oren, we talked earlier and you mentioned something, the philosophy of leaving a footprint versus leaving a handprint, and that really stuck with me. Would you share a bit more with the audience?
Yes, and I think that this is what everybody is talking. Let's say we go to the beach, right? Let's say that you went to the beach and you throw something. You left your footprint behind you. I came after you, or Ben came after and picked it up. That's a handprint. And I think that after what you just said, if every brand will start calculating their LCA, okay? And when you calculate LCA, it's not just like your packaging. It's like, how do you move everything? Let's say I manufacture in LA. We just opened like a couple new facilities in Houston and in Mexico. But I manufacture in LA and I need to ship something to New York. These trucks that we see going on the highways, each truck is creating 250,000 tons of carbon dioxide every year. Each one of these trucks. And manufacturing skincare, for instance, shampoos, is like 80% water. 80% water that we're moving and creating, like each little bottle that we bring from China, sitting in the ocean, this little bottle is creating 100 grams of carbon dioxide. So now take this bottle and let's assume that a 40-foot container has 50,000 of this, and think of how many containers are sitting in the oceans right now. Think of how much carbon dioxide we create, and the things that we're trying to focus. The guys over here are doing amazing big things. We're doing the little things, The things that we're trying to focus on is the simple thing. What you guys as a brand can change tomorrow. Instead of getting your packaging from China, yes, I know there is the profit and loss, and you get an amazing tube from China for 50, 60 cents. But you can get the same tube from Mexico or from here, and if you'll start calculating your LCA, next to your profit and loss, you're going to have another row of your LCA, and everybody will be committed to lower their LCA, the life cycle analysis calculation into their product and into their profit and loss, then we can make a change. And this change can happen tomorrow. Bill Gates came with this amazing new way to create energy. By the time this will be happening, by the time this will be happening, my son will be 50. He's 11, almost. He'll be 50, But if each and every one of you, from that owning a brand, will make a change tomorrow, the impact that we can do is much quicker, much bigger. What these guys are doing is amazing. They're creating handprint. They're basically selling you a product that is creating a handprint. And if each one of us will start doing it, that will be a change that we'll see in a year.
Back to the Cousteaus. When I think of you, I don't necessarily think of cannabis. So
Yep.
Neither did we for a long time.
SeaWeed.
Yep.
So tell us how this magic is all coming together.
I think we've spent a lot of nights up with the new baby and slightly stressing out about this, and if this is on brand. And yes, when you think of Cousteau, cannabis doesn't come to mind. But when we came up with the name SeaWeed, we were like, if the Cousteaus ever did a weed brand, we'd have to call it SeaWeed. That's amazing. So, that was the win for us.
That was a cincher when it was
That
all
was a
available.
cincher.
We were like,
We're like,
oh,
yes.
wow, okay.
But
Sign.
because it's not expected, right? And it's about how can we innovate and how can we give customers different options, and how can we elevate the wellness brand with these clinically proven, with clinically proven things like seaweed and algae, and give consumers a better product. but also a product that is regenerating the ocean. Every time you buy this, you are actually helping the ocean become healthier. And giving consumers and empowering consumers is really what got us so excited. And along the way, trying to fix as many problems as we can.
Well, and we've also seen, anecdotally, in our family and friends, the impact of THC products from a wellness perspective, topicals, for skin issues and soreness and ligament and joint problems, all sorts of things, nerve damage. A good friend of ours, 83, nothing helped her nerve damage in her hip until she started using topicals. And we're doing topicals, tinctures, and edible gummies. We also recognize, wow, there's a really interesting field here, because when you look at omega-3s and you look at the benefit of omega-3s, again, from algae, not from fish oil or from krill oil, because those are devastating to the ocean. I'll leave it there. But and fish and krill get their omega-3s from algae. So you can cut out the middle fish and go straight to the algae. So I encourage anybody, if you consume omega-3s, look for vegan omega-3s from algae. But all the benefits that provides around anxiety and depression mentally, but then also the physical benefits of that, I think it's really interesting to combine those with all the similar types of impacts that THC and CBD have from an ingestible perspective, then also all the benefits of SeaWeed, anti-inflammatory, all those things from a topical perspective. So we really do think we can kind of create a new category and a more sophisticated product for the consumer.
Well, you mentioned like treating the ocean as a garden, and Oren, you've talked about the importance of reestablishing urban gardens, and of course, Ben, you are the garden guru. So if you could each talk a little bit about how to really stop thinking globally and acting locally when it comes to sourcing and it comes to picking your products, choosing what to include in products.
Absolutely. I mean, we started with our own land. We grow the hemp. We use organic alcohol to extract it. We grow a lot of the other botanicals we blend with it. Very similar approach that you empower cannabinoids and cannabis by mixing it with other plants. I love the ocean idea. The same goes with terrestrial plants. And then looked local for any packaging. We got a recyclable, reusable bottle, a local paper mill using recycled paper and hemp paper. And then we found a group that uses ground hemp and mycelia to make a mold to hold a bottle instead of plastic. So when we ship online, it lands in a compostable a mushroom and hemp hurd packaging. And we just spent, my sister Melanie, who's here in the crowd, built Treaty over 2 years by just identifying how to build that local supply chain and regenerative and sustainable. It wasn't cheap to do, but we also were keeping track of what costs we were avoiding to the environment. And I think in every ecosystem, in every place, there's an approach to take, and some are more lucky than others, but we just have to think about every step we're making and if we're starting out on the right foot.
I think that Ben is living the dream. He's a farmer. All of us want to wake up in the morning, get on the tractor, get to the field, you know. We're not so lucky living in...
I don't get to do that anymore,
no?
But no.
If you ever need a driver, let me know. So we're not so lucky. And by starting to think about, and that's the amazing thing, if each and everyone will start thinking about it, we'll come with like so many amazing ideas. So for us, by starting to think about it, we said, okay, what can we do? And we found out that like by urban farming, basically, we can lower the temperature of the world. It can do like amazing effect. We can use this thing that we grow to like use in our ingredients. And right now we actually took down 2 big walls in the middle of our plant in LA, and we're going to build like 2 green walls to grow a couple of ingredients that we're using like a lot. And I think that like if brands, for instance, there is a brand that we're doing now with like NBA player from Auckland, and he really cares about Auckland. He grew up in Auckland. He really cares about the city. And the first thing that came to my mind to do with him in Auckland is to start urban farming in Auckland, that the schools in Auckland will like grow the ingredients that we're going to use in his brand. And by this, there is a lot of research about like green walls and how do they affect kids, and the level of oxygen when it's changing, it's like calming them down. And we're going to teach them not just like on growing, but we're going to actually teach them on how to do business. Mm-hmm. They're going to be the one that are growing it and selling it to the brand. and everybody will benefit. Auckland, I don't know if you guys know, but Auckland is like, the air over there is like horrible, and the land over there is like...
Dead.
Exactly. Dead. So I think that this is one of the things that we thought of, like how to create handprint. And I think, again, every brand need to like come up with their angle or even use, and this is why we don't care about sharing these ideas. It's not like a secret, it didn't launch yet, but end of the day, it's just like helping all of us, you know? Even if I won't do anything and everybody over here will start doing that, the benefit is all mine, because in 50 years, again, and this is what I have always in my mind, in 50 years when my son is like in his 60s, we can get him a better world than what we're looking forward right now.
Yeah, it's about being thoughtful, right? And for instance, like our first SeaWeed that we're actually using, the SeaWeed powder that we're actually using in our launch products, we partnered with the Atlantic Sea Farms. So they are in Maine, and one of the problems that the ocean is having is the ocean is warming. And because the ocean is warming, lobster, which used to be a huge industry in Maine, they're all going north into Canada. But that's leaving these lobster fishermen and fisherwomen with nothing to do. They have no jobs, and this is what they've done for generations. So Atlantic Sea Farms is actually partnering with these fisher people. They're giving them free seeds. They're teaching them how to sustainably grow and harvest seaweed, and then they're also guaranteeing how much seaweed they're going to buy for them at the end of the season. So it's literally giving these people sustainable jobs that are sustainable in the money that they're going to bring home to their families, but also sustainable for the environment. And this seaweed is also restoring the ocean in the area, making it healthier, making it more resistant to climate change, more resistant to storm surges. It's reoxygenating. I can never say that. Do you say it?
Oxygenating.
Thank
You said
you.
it right. You had it right.
Yeah. And it's really just helping to make the ocean and the planet a better place. So again, it's in really, every decision that you make, you can make a better decision. And so.
And to that point, I love Oren's story about the kids. You know,
Yeah.
coming from an organization that I founded, Earth Echo, and we work with youth all over the world. One of the challenges I think we face from an environmental perspective in the movement, that historically, has been a lot of talk about polar bears. Polar bears, poster childs of climate change, right? And
we love polar bears.
we love a polar bear. They're the apex indicator species, you know, all this other stuff that we know and love about them. They're extraordinary. But people don't relate to polar bears. Converted maybe, but not the masses, not the majority of people. And so when we looked at our partnership with Atlantic Sea Farms, and we're looking at other farming communities, you know, in indigenous communities, First Nations tribes up in Canada, et cetera, coastal tribes that are looking to do this. It's about the people too, and that was really, really important. It's about how do we improve people's lives? How do we make, because that's what we relate to. We're human species, that's what we care about. And so adding that into the mix of this story about our health and our communities and our children, as well as the environment and the ocean and nature, I think is really, really important, because that is what is relevant and people can relate to. So I love that story. And our effort, the same with the fishermen, try and help people, you know, make people's lives better.
I think that regeneration is a solution to many of our social and economic problems.
Yeah.
I mean, we can keep making robots to replace workers, but what are we the people supposed to do? And there's actually a lot of work to do to turn this planet around. So a whole new industry and work around actually addressing our problems can create meaningful work for people. A lot of people are having hiring problems. We're getting so many hiring prospects at Hudson Carbon that I think people themselves are waiting for solutions. So I think it's just a beautiful example of, in the city, on the coast, what needs to happen.
Okay, and I used to be a beauty editor, so I have to ask some specifics. What can I buy when I go on to the website right now? What can I buy down the road? What should I be buying? Tell me everything.
So literally when we said we're launching, like, we were not kidding. Our website went live today. We were looking at it in the cab
making
coming
sure
over. Yeah, the links work. So we are launching 8 SKUs. So we're going to do 2 edible gummies, high tide and low tide. One's sativa, one's indica, and the indica is at night. The low tide also has melatonin in it to help you sleep. We're doing 2 different versions of body balms for the topicals. a CBD heavy and a THC heavy. We're doing a CBD heavy body oil, a dry oil, a lip balm, because I am just a sucker for a good chapstick. And did I miss something else? Oh, and tinctures, and tinctures that you can take. So we're launching, because we are full spectrum, we're launching in California first, since that's where we live, and with already our eyes on expanding into Massachusetts and then here in New York. Bravo to you all for voting that in. But also we want to do a CBD line, a CBD or a hemp oil line, because we also realize that for some people, they're just not going to they just don't want to do THC. And also, we want to make sure that everybody can get this product. Yeah. So I think that's our phase 2 will be CBD.
And so everything will be available. So we launched this morning, will be available first or second week of December. Mm-hmm. We've had a few supply chain issues, just like everybody else, but I think we've worked those out. Jill's nodding, yes, so we've worked those out. And so
if not, now
week of December.
If not.
Yeah, exactly. Oren, we gotta, well, we need to talk anyway. You know, and I think also it's about recognizing, like, it's a process. Like, there's already a lot of things that we're looking at that is saying, like, we know we can do all of this stuff better.
Yeah.
And so how do you build the partnerships and have the conversations to be like, ooh, you know, like, can we bring this product, or can we find this ingredient closer to home? You know, what can we do? And accepting that. We're not perfect. Like, our intentionality is there, and we're doing everything we can, but we can always be better, and we know that, and we should always strive to be better, and that's okay, right? So that's important for us. But first, second week of December will be our partners Grassdoor, so we're working with Grassdoor as a delivery, direct-to-consumer in California, and then select wellness-focused dispensaries throughout the state.
Great.
Well, at Hudson Hemp, Treaty is about to launch its sleep product, and we currently offer Focus, Recovery, Calm, and Balance, which are all CBD products and some CBG balanced with other medicinals. But this Melanie's coordinated a beautiful campaign for the sleep product, all utilizing local botanicals to complement, land, terrestrial and ocean solutions coming together in cannabis is sounding great in your in your supply chain.
I think just like that, if one thing everybody need to take from this conversation, it's like easy to sit like on your porch and meditate and care about the environment, and sending like good vibes and everything. But it's like it's harder, but that's what will make the change and the effect. If each one of us will do like a tiny change, a small change, all of us together can do like a much bigger change than even like if all the United Nations will decide to do something, or if all of us will decide to do something, we can make the change and we can really make it happen.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite quotes. Individually, we're all one drop of water, but together we are the ocean. I forget who says that.
That's a good one,
Well, thank you, guys. We're going to open it up to any questions from the audience now. So I think...
And if you don't have questions, we'll just keep talking.
That's a threat. So.
I'm curious how the consumers are reacting to the positioning of your brand. We've seen a lot of demand for cannabis consumer products and perhaps not enough intersectionality between the sustainability mission and the opportunity in cannabis. How are you communicating the value, the importance, the imperative of these products and how they're being produced relative to everything else on the market?
So we think there's a couple interesting things happening, particularly in the wellness space, that it's a rapidly growing sector. It's bringing in a lot of people that are curious about cannabis and curious about these ingredients and products. Canna-curious, yes. And so that's a big kind of market for us that we see. I think wellness tends to skew women. But we see, particularly in California, a lot of those consumers care about these issues already. So we think there's a pretty big pool to tap into of folks that have sustainability in the ocean, in particular, being a coastal state, that care about that. But like I said, we launched this morning, so we should have more data in a few months on that. We're hoping that people resonate with it and going through all the the steps from a press and marketing and online. I mean, online's going to be a big part of this. And so how we
And education.
maximize that in education. So working, another key part is working with dispensaries. We're really targeting wellness-focused dispensaries that, really have, really informed bud tenders, because that's going to be a key interface for us with our consumer. Consumer education is going to be, through that. So let's talk in a couple months.
And two, I think Philippe touched on this, but I want to just mention it again too. It's just educating people in general about the impact, like fish oil. We all know that fish oil, that omega-3s are great for our brain, they're great for our skin and our organs and our tissues. But you didn't want to say this, but I can. The fishing practices of actually fishing out fish from our ocean and krill from these delicate ecosystems like Antarctica, which is the basis for the entire ocean conveyor belt. Literally, Antarctica runs our world's climate, and yet fishing boats are going down there and raping and pillaging the ocean for these krill to crush them up into oil that we all take for omega-3s. But the krill gets the omega-3s from algae. From a marine, it's just a marine plant, a plant like algae. And so if we can leave the fish, leave the krill in the ocean, get our omega-3s, the DHA and the EPA, thank you, mom brain, woo! Then we can actually keep those fish, keep those, the ocean food web together and intact, and provide a better quality ingredient for ourselves, because we, as humans, we actually absorb the marine algae omega-3s 3 times better than we do the fish oil. So again, it's like just educating people, because a lot of people just don't realize that. So you don't need the fish, you just go straight to the source. And again, education is a huge part of that. And once people realize there's a better choice, it's a no-brainer. Also, you don't get fish burps if you take the algae. Just throwing that out there.
Bonus
Like everybody
too, yeah.
knows that. Ugh. So it's just, it's educating and really just showing people that there are alternatives that are better for the planet.
And better for us.
Yeah. Better for the planet, better for people.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the omega-3s they're sourced originally from an algae in the Bay of Fundy in Canada, but now they are grown in labs. So there are no marine toxins or anything like that in omega-3s.
Yeah.
And it's extracted in a chemical-free, solvent-free, almost like a fermentation, kind of like kombucha is kind of the system that they use to grow this algae and then get the omega-3s. The kelp forests are grown in this case, in Maine. And they are not, kelp grows very, very quickly. Again, as Ashlan said, we're all, you hear COP26, deforestation, huge problem. Don't get me wrong, absolutely. Like, that's part of the equation. Like, we all need to be firing all cylinders, but we gloss over the fact that mangroves grow incredibly quickly. Kelp can grow a couple feet in a day. And so these are fast-growing ecosystems. They don't really tend to bioaccumulate the kind of toxins that long-lived fish might, although most of our fish oil comes from things like anchovy Manhattan, relatively short-lived fish. So you're not dealing with the same kinds of toxin concerns that you are from finfish around mercury, lead, and all those kinds of things in these kind of fast-growing and harvested. Now and there's a lot more research. There's a lot of interesting things happening on that. A lot of people are looking at what the carbon benefits of that are in terms of sequestering that into the roots and into the soil. So it's an emerging field that is really starting to get attention now. About the potential of this for the economy, for our health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I think we have time for one more question.
Thank you. I love this conversation because the number one way to save our planet is to save our oceans. One of the best ways to save our oceans is to develop the hemp industry in particular, and how circular that is. You guys have talked a lot about your wellness products, but I'm curious if there are industrial hemp ambitions amongst the group.
So at Hudson Carbon, we're launching a study on several industrial hemp farming practices with a group in Montana who's built a large hemp processing facility at scale to process 20,000 acres of industrial hemp a year into hurd and fiber, for building materials and textiles, so really replacing dirty inputs with carbon sequestered in hemp. it's critical also that we understand what practices produce hemp in a way that's building carbon in the soil and not affecting water negatively or biodiversity. So the industrial hemp, I think, is a tremendous solution to actually directly sequester carbon through the hemp as a vessel to deliver carbon into soils in the hemp itself, and also to offset carbon emissions from dirty supply chains. And it's hemp, bamboo, seaweed, kelp. There are a series of foundational plants that we've been taking for granted for hundreds of years because they don't create a quick buck, but they are fundamental to ecosystem restoration on land and in water. And hemp is certainly one of the top 10 plants we can look at on Earth's surface to really change supply chains while sequestering carbon.
Thank you. Thanks to all of our speakers today, and enjoy the rest of your day.